town of poetry. Hence, I reached out to Shanna, who I want to thank for being the facilitator of the election team, right? For all of her hard work. But I reached out to her and I said, we have a gym here. We need to use this facility, since it is neutral ground, to offer an opportunity and a place for the candidates to share for their election. And so that's why we're here now. We have socially distanced the chairs. Typically, our gym rule is you come in, you socially distance, and you wear a mask. And praise the Lord, this year, if we've been moving around, we wear masks. In the classroom, we use the desk guards that you can see through, so students don't have to wear masks when they're in the classroom. And then the teachers get to wear these nice little half shields so that they can teach and be seen. So this year's been a success in that regard. So we do ask you to go ahead and keep the chairs socially distanced, mainly just to respect the feelings and opinions of others that you may or may not agree with. If we can open in prayer, we will begin our evening. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for our weather. We thank you for our community. And we thank you for this opportunity to bring forward individuals who care about their community, and for us, others, to vote, to have them represent us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Candidates, if you could take your place in any chair that you want. I have placed a copy of the questions in every chair so that you don't have to ask for it to be repeated if it's too long or too fast. I would like to repeat the request that you do wear a mask. You are sitting very close to each other. When you do stand at the podium, though, and you can remove your mask so that everyone can see your face and your expressions. We have 3 questions that are for everyone today, and each of them is a little bit long. The first one, if the candidates would just give a very, very brief introduction. Each question, your answer will be timed at 3 minutes, and your intro is included. We do still have recordings of your intros from before, your bio. So you'll have 3 minutes. I'll hold up a little card at 1 minute. I'll hold up another one at 30 seconds, and then I'll just say thank you if you reach the end of the 3 minutes. So you drew numbers and letters before, and for the first question, we'll begin with Tara Sankovic. These questions, as before, were taken from questions submitted by citizens. In some cases, there were repeated themes, and the questions were combined. So you might hear a part of your question in a question. Number 1, poetry is becoming a target location for prospective housing developments and is a location known for lack of crime and good partnerships between property owners. D.R. Horton is already putting in a 380-plus home development with 4 homes per acre that extends into the Poetry ETJ off Poetry Road and 2452. They are putting in place a waste treatment center and expanding Blackland Water to accommodate this development. The question is, do you want to see this kind of development in our town of Poetry? If yes, what would you do to help bring this to our area? If no, what would you do to prevent these kinds of developments within Poetry?
Okay, so This kind of development at 4 houses per acre in our beautiful poetry is like my worst nightmare, hands down. One of the main reasons that I chose to put all the hundreds of hours and all the effort into the incorporation effort was to prevent this kind of thing from happening in our beloved poetry. If we really want to protect poetry, want to keep it country, we need to keep that kind of development out. D.R. Horton is not known for high-end homes. They're lower end. They bring crime. They bring, just like Rat Park, you get people more congested. They don't get along as well. They're more aggressive. They want more rules, and they demand more city-type amenities. Well, this is country poetry. Please don't citify my country, okay? So in order to prevent that kind of thing, we have to zone, okay? We have to zone our poetry proper area we can zone, and that can prevent a lot of this from happening. My other idea is, okay, so I have been on this, but my other idea is that we can connect people who are selling out, okay? Say Joe Farmer, he is tired, it's been a rough couple of years, farming and ranching are tough. He wants to sell out and go to a beach somewhere, okay? He can absolutely do that, but can we be proactive and connect him with someone who also would like to farm, or someone also who would love to have 100 acres and just a barn and ranching their animals, and that's their dream. Why can't we have a poetry dream connectors, where when someone's moving out, instead of just letting the land developers scoop it up, why can't we connect that dreamer with another dreamer and protect our precious lands? We don't just have to give in. We don't just have to give up hope. There is hope. We can make a change. We can make a difference. Is that my time?
That was 1 minute.
Okay, and I get 3?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, okay, awesome. Okay, so not only is the D.R. Horton development that you have seen the clearing, they've already caught the pipes. Blackline water is required by state law. I didn't know this initially. They were required by state law to provide water for any development. That is in their CCN, is state mandate. They have to do that. So the same thing would happen to poetry. They are required by CCN to provide the water. TCEQ unfortunately did give them that. There is also a housing development just 1 mile from Poetry's ETJ, okay? This one right here is estimated 6,000 homes, all right? So this is the one they're talking about. It's just 1.5 miles to Trojan Horse Estates. Guess what? In the next 5 years, you'll be hearing all of that construction, all right? That's not
Thank you,
full
Tara.
with, huh? Oh, was that my time? Okay. So I think there is a way to approach it differently than what we've seen in other towns, and in the breakout session, I'll be happy to go over with you more details on that.
So as Chad Delita is walking toward the podium, I'll clarify, my cards say 1 minute when you have 1 minute remaining, and then 30 seconds when you have 30 seconds remaining. I'm sorry that wasn't clear before.
How's it going, everybody? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'll jump into the question unless we are going to have one more thing.
Sorry, very quickly.
No worries.
We are streaming in a couple of different ways, and for this one, the Zoom, if you leave the podium area, you vanish from view. So just stay.
So stay
Don't
here.
wander around too much, or else you'll still be heard, but you'll leave.
Got it.
Okay, sorry. Chad Delita, same question.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so a couple things, guys. First of all, how's everybody doing today? We doing okay? I want to kind of address a couple of things I just heard, because I'm kind of having some mixed understandings here. When we say don't citify our town, but yet we're going to put zones in our town and regulations in our town, we have a mixed message that I'm just not okay with. The problem is we're talking about a subdivision at D.R. Horton, and I understand that, and I think if we took a poll here, who wants a D.R. Horton as their neighbor, not one person's going to raise their hand. But reality is different, because when you're talking about Joe the farmer, if one of you is Joe the farmer and you're about ready to hang up your boots and you're going to sell your land, what she's saying is that you cannot sell your land to whoever offers you the most money. Putting a pool together sounds fun. If somebody offers you, let's say the average or what you're going for is $500,000. If someone's going to offer you $750,000, are we saying you cannot take that offer? Are we stopping landowners from taking that offer? I'm sorry, she said that if there's someone that's wanting to sell their farmland, that they're going to go put a pool together of people that might buy it, right?
No, you misunderstood her. Not what we took.
In zoning restrictions?
Okay, let me just kind of go off of that. So just to talk about the DR Hortons that are coming in, the question is, can we do anything about it in the first place? If we put zones on our land, we're going to have restrictions for each and every one of us landowners. Now, some of you don't have any problem with that, but I really do. So I think that if I want to sell my land, it's entirely up to me, and that's the end of the story. If somebody's going to offer more for my land, I'm going to take the best offer that I see fit, and I'm not going to tell my neighbor that they can or can't, okay? If I wanted to sell my land, and that's my prerogative, I will absolutely sell out. And I think everyone in here should do the same, right? That's how it should be. So, like I said, if we want to talk about citying our land, citifying and all that with our land, we are under restrictions that you can and can't, or you will be limited to do that and such. So when we talk about save the farms, who are we saving them from? The farmers are the ones selling their land. So you're telling a farmer not to sell his land if he or she decides to sell it, and or if it doesn't fit the restriction that somebody else gave into the vision of their own. I don't believe in that. We've been in poetry for 145 years since the community of poetry started. Some of you guys seen that on my clip. The idea is we've never had to have these regulations. Look how great we are today. Okay? So I think we're absolutely wonderful today. I don't think we need to start restricting people. And I promise you one thing, if I'm the mayor of poetry, any restrictions, outlandish, it's a domino effect. It's a slippery slope, and I promise you, it starts all nice and cute, and then it gets worse and worse, and 5 years later, we will be a Terrell Part 2. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Robert Herman, same question.
Good evening. I want to thank you all for coming out here to listen to all of us. Can you all hear me? Yep. Okay. I want to make sure. Simple answer for me is no. I believe in landowners' rights first and foremost. I think, like Chad said, it is a slippery slope. But it comes down to, really, you got to look at it from a legal standpoint, what we can and can't do when it comes to zoning and restrictions. I'm not a big fan of zoning and restrictions as well, so I'm for the landowner's rights. That's it. I'm sorry, Robert Herman.
And you guys, remember that you will have time to speak with the candidates after the meeting. They each have tables with their names that you can go talk to them. Because they are timed, and it was suggested that we hold a debate, and I openly stated that I am not equipped to hold a debate, so we're not having a debate, and this is their 3 minutes. So if you guys could just let them speak and not interact with them in a way that costs them time. Yes, they should, and so if we'd stop talking, yelling at them, they could.
Good afternoon. My name's Clyde Serna, candidate for city council. I'm here to represent the great people of poetry. My answer is no as well. That development that I see as I go to work every day, it turned my stomach when I seen all those big equipment in there taking all those trees down. It's one of those things that's why we're forming our council and our local government here. And I believe that you folks out there have a voice in it. So that's something that needs to be brought up if that ever did come up again in a town forum or just a discussion before it's brought to the city council, and we'll reach out and try to legally look at some things that we can do to stop it. Or obviously, the restrictions is one of those things that we don't necessarily want to do, or zoning, but there's some opportunities out there that we could look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. And Ryan Scott.
Evening, everybody. I'm Ryan Scott. I think everybody's answer up here would be a simple no. Like, nobody really wants developers coming in like D.R. Horton or anything like that. And I understand we all want poetry not to change, but the fact of the matter is, poetry has changed over the past 145 years, and it will continue to change. And I'm a big believer as well in property owners' rights. And while I might not agree with my neighbor Bob or whoever selling his 100 acres and them coming in and putting 100 houses on it, at the end of the day, that's his prerogative. And I think that what has been getting lost a little bit through all this is that there's a lot of wishful thinking. A lot of people want it to stay the same. I want it to stay the same, but it changed when everyone that moved here. When you moved here, it changed. When the next family moves in, it's going to change some more. And you can't stop change completely as much as we'd like to. We can't freeze time. And so, if there's some actions we can take to kind of limit that growth and slow it down, I'm all for that. But it has to be from a legal standpoint. And there's going to be a lot of learning by whoever gets elected to the mayor or city council positions. And there's going to have to be a lot of looking at laws. And I think one of the first things, my personal opinion, needs to be done is get a lawyer. Figure out where some income's coming at and see if we can hire a lawyer to start looking at that and see what legally wise we can and can't do. Because last thing we want to do is implement a bunch of things that could possibly go against state, federal, county laws, and then a big builder like D.R. Horton come in and take the town of Poetry to court and sue them. And Poetry doesn't have the capital or money to fight somebody like that. At the end of the day, it's just my personal opinion. I'm all for, like I said, limiting it as much as we can without infringing upon landowners' rights and just following the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Bo. Stephen Welsh.
Hello, everybody. I'm Steve Welsh. Nice to be here tonight. So, the opinion about the neighborhood subdivisions is pretty much, I assume it's going to be unanimous. None of us really want that. I don't pretend to know. I know our experience. My family and I, we came out here. We're going on our 8th year here in Poetry, and we came from Mesquite in a little neighborhood called Creek Crossing, a little neighborhood. So I know that, my daughter and her new husband just moved into a Heath neighborhood for D.R. Horton, right there on the edge of Travis Ranch, a little neighborhood. And so I found out some of the things that our experience with those subdivisions are that it ends up being a lot of subsidized housing and a lot of rent properties. I know that in their brand new neighborhood, there are lots that aren't even developed yet, and like 8 of them in a row are all rent properties. A company came in and bought them, and they're just going to build them to spec, and they're going to rent them out. And it's just we lived a long time in that Creek Crossing area, and we saw it change a lot. I know my truck was broke into like half a dozen times. I don't know how many tools are out there of mine that I bought so many DeWalts, it's not even funny. And so we definitely don't like that. We don't want subdivisions. We came out here and we love it. We love our 6 acres. We love kind of not being so close to your neighbors. You can hear them when they're cooking. And we like the privacy, and we like to protect each other, and we like to to get along, and so I really don't want to see that happen here. So whatever we have to do as a council and citizens, I think we should do to protect that and protect our home and our town. So thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Tom Anderson.
Hello, I'm Tom Anderson. Been out in poetry for 19 years. We have horses. We have 9 acres. And of course, like nobody, we don't want D.R. Horton or the developments. We like it with plenty of open land. Having said that, I think the real wild card in this is not the people in this room, but the descendants. Because it seems like what always happens is while we don't want to sell out, our kids do. And this has happened over and over, is that once the descendants have the chance to say, well, do we want to move out to poetry on the land, or do we want to take the cash and move to Hawaii or whatever, is it more often than not they're going to take the cash. So I see it coming. I don't think there's any way you can say it's not going to come, maybe not in our life, and maybe not in the next few years, but there are going to be people that are going to sell out to the developers. Now, what that comes down to, in my mind, is how do you negotiate and how do you keep that to a minimum and get the best deal possible out of it? And part of that goes to who's on the city council and who's the mayor. And there's a lot of issues to deal with, by the way. I mean, including getting a financial statement or stability out here, going through a lot of legal loopholes to get the city up as a legal entity. And then in the long run, if we want to keep development out, it's going to be up to whoever's on the council and the mayor to be able to talk to the various entities, whether it's municipal entities or the D.R. Hortons of the world, and do what we can to get the best possible deal to keep them out, because our descendants are going to take the cash in many cases, and it's coming. So it's up to us to set the right tone right now to minimize that, and that's going to be by setting the different types of structures that we have for the organization. And by the way, I'm not for having zoning and for having a lot of controls. I'm one I like it, being able to set my destiny, and I like it like that. I'm not for having a lot of rules and regulations. But the reality is, I think it's coming. We can see it from the value of the land. You know, all of us bought land much, much cheaper, and it's much more expensive now. And that's an indication that other people see what we have. The bridge is already crossed. They know what we're out here, and so we're going to have to do the best we can on the council and the mayor to set up a structure to keep that down, or at least minimize it in our lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Mike Jeffy.
I decided we needed to wear masks, didn't wear hearing aids, because it's not easy to get them on and off without losing your hearing aids. I joined my candidate friends here with thanking everybody for coming out and taking an interest in our community. The only thing that separates you out there from us is we probably don't have good sense, but here we are. And, you know, I would agree with everybody else. I don't want developments. But I thought, you know, Bo made a great point, and I never really thought about it the way he just said it, that, you know, when each of us moved out here, even if it was 50 or 60 years ago, poetry changed, right? And it's just sort of what happens. And I can tell you, as I get older, I realize more and more, and my wife reminds me of this a lot, that not everybody shares my opinions. But I can assure you that I come here with a blank sheet of paper. I don't come here with an agenda. I would love to put, I'm sort of the opposite of Tara. Tara mentioned at the last meeting putting up welcome signs. I would put like radioactive signs at each entrance to our COVID sanctuary or leper colony or something. And I can tell you, and I say this with all honesty, in all the years I've lived here, 22 years, my wife has lived here 43, whenever somebody comes to poetry, I don't care if it's to repair a tractor or to visit or attend a function, I am always quick to tell them that our crime rate is astronomical. I'll tell them, you cannot believe how many murders occur here on a weekly basis. There's daytime robberies, the roads are horrible, and the people are just meaner than hell, and you just don't want to live here. And the reason is, I know why poetry is great. I don't need everybody else to know. We don't need to convince ourselves this is a wonderful place to live. We're already here, okay? So one of the things that I would do with regard to this development thing is, let's not go about selling poetry to the world, right? The realtors already know about it, tragically. I wish we could take that back. But as people have pointed out, at the end of the day, we're kind of worried and scared of ourselves because we own the land that makes up poetry. And we will make decisions as to whether we sell that land, we hold that land. In a discussion we had with Bo, he mentioned the idea of tying land up in family trust. There's land here in poetry, some of you may be a part of it, that's encumbered in family trust to ensure that the integrity of the land's use continues on for at least a long time, maybe not forever. Nothing lasts forever. But you know, to me, at the end of the day, I don't know what the right answer is, and I think if any of us tell you we do have the answer, you need to kind of check us out a little more thoroughly, because I don't think it's an easy answer. I don't think we could find two people in this room that would agree on anything. We're all individuals, we're all independent. The nature of the people that live in poetry is that we want to kind of do our own thing. I think this requires input from a lot of people. It requires prayer, it requires thought, and over time we'll figure out what the right answer is. But it's not an easy answer, because I can tell you most towns do not start up to stay the same. They start up to grow. So we're a little bit of an aberration here. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. Simeon White.
Howdy. And for those of y'all who didn't hear, I'm Simeon White. Y'all might know from me canvassing and going around that I could probably talk for 30 minutes about this subject easy. But I've only got 3, so I'll try to make it quick. This entire thing of poetry becoming more and more city is the entire reason I got involved. And it's a hard no. I don't want it to become more city. This is the reason I helped canvass for the Poetry Incorporation and got involved, because like everybody else here, at first I was a little apprehensive about us becoming a town, because that's what I'm trying to avoid in the end. So this is the entire reason I started this. And I'm not exactly a fan of zoning in general. For those of y'all who don't know, I'll try to give y'all the briefest summary I can. But my family business was in Terrell, and now I've lived here 13 years, but the business was in Terrell, and because of their zoning, and because of false zoning allocations, which were not written in their law, but they could use anyways, they kicked us out of Terrell. Originally, they were trying to move us to a commercial area, and the fire marshal came in and gave us 30 minutes to clear out. It was very unfair and unfortunate, but such things happen. So I'm not exactly a fan of zoning, but I'm very glad that there are ways to keep this place poetry without very, very strict zoning regulations. And I'll talk about those in a second, but just to remind people, we've got people coming in from out of state, and that's probably not going to stop anytime soon. More and more people are going to be coming in. This development issue is going to gain momentum as time goes on. The more people that move in to those little half-acre lots, quarter-acre lots, the more people are going to be voting to make it that way because they like it that way. That's why they moved there. But there are thankfully laws that we can enact that aren't too harsh on the people that don't want harsh zoning regulations and whatnot. Unfortunately, Texas is a little pro-development. Now, I love Texas. Texas is my favorite state by far. I lived here my whole life. But they are pro-development, and they've put a limit on the amount of property you can make, and say you can split it up into property sizes this much and no more, and that's 2 acres. So we could guarantee the town that nobody can build areas smaller than 2 acres without implementing any zoning whatsoever, which is a mercy. That would at least help us. I mean, many people here want 5-acre minimum. That's what I've heard from some of the people I've talked to. But 2 acres is better than, you know, a quarter-acre plots. Also, it's a little complicated with zoning and making sure people don't develop too much, because we're walking into county area too. For poetry proper, We make all the rules and regulations. For ETJ, it's a mix and a little bit of a gray area between county and us. So that's going to require a bit of work. And then anything out of our ETJ or extraterritorial jurisdiction, we have no say over.
Thank you, Simeon.
Oh, is that the 3
That's
minutes?
time, yeah.
Okay, my bad. Like I said, I could talk about this for a long time, and feel free to ask me any more questions.
Terry Fowler is next.
Hello, I'm Terry Fowler. I'm glad to get to take this mask off for a minute. So, it's resounding, nobody wants D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton's not the only developer, I promise you, that's looking out here. But let's talk about D.R. Horton and those other developers. What do they have that we don't as a city? They have unlimited resources, they have lawyers, they know how to beat the system. So we are the system now, and we have to put some things in law or ordinance that's going to protect us, or else we will get beat. We won't have the funds to fight them, and that's just no two ways about it. So everybody that knows me pretty well knows that I'm married into the Portree family, and my father-in-law brought up a great point. I've never looked at it. We're not a farming and ranching community anymore. We are a residential community, sprinkled with a few farms and ranchettes. Mayhew Ranch is one of the biggest ranches in this area, and now that's Grande Verde and Buena Vista. So those ranches get developed into developments. How do we want them to look? We're not gonna, I'm not for telling people don't sell or any of that, but one thing I thought about when other people were talking is we're regulated right now. We don't have city sewer, so we're regulated by, on our septic systems by the county. I've heard 1 acre to 1.5 acres, but it really depends on your soil test. So that's a great starting point right there. Is if we say, hey, every house out here has to be on what the county has recommended. That's somewhere to start. I would love to hear more from y'all. But let's talk about D.R. Horton and this development. They're putting in a wastewater treatment system, and some people have talked about that. So what that does, it treats the water, and then they redistribute it into the creeks. You kind of get that eerie feeling, yeah, it's kind of nasty, but it's regulated by TCEQ. But at the end of the day, TCEQ is another state-run program. So we know that TCEQ's found a lot of things that they was totally unaware of for 10 years. So I'm gonna try to speed this up a little bit. I'm getting as far as what Tara was speaking about with the water, she is correct. The water department does have to provide that water. So my initial thought was that's gonna cost me as a water subscriber myself. The more research I dug into that, if it's over 30 acres, D.R. Horton's development is over 30 acres, they can elect not to be in your water system. They can bring blackland water right through the city of Portree and supply their own water. So that's scary. They can also, I'm not going to get to anything I want to talk about. They can also, Portree can supply them the water, but the research I found, it's not on us. That will be on the developer. The infrastructure, they'll have to hire a consultant. The consultant will say, we need 2 more water towers, you need 2 more backup pumps. That is on the developer. But if blackland water's sitting right outside with the infrastructure to do it, they're going to come right beside us, and that'll be all we can do about it. Maybe I can catch some of these other points in a minute.
Thank you, Terry. And Brian Benson?
Good evening, Poetry. My name is Brian Benson. This is a hot topic right off the beginning, so I respect the committee for getting this out there. We've heard a lot of opinions, but when this race started, let me back up for a second. The reason I got involved with all of this was through the Nextdoor app. There was a lot of information that needed to be shared. I felt like I was a conduit where I could share it. And once the incorporation happened, I figured my job was done. I had decided not to run for office, but I had a lot of people ask me to do it, so I'm here for you guys. So we've heard a lot of opinions up here. I would like to hear from you. Now, I'm a huge proponent of landowner rights, and if you could you raise your hand if you're a big fan of landowner rights? If you own land, you can do pretty much what you want to on it. Please keep your hands up, because we're going to go through a process here. How about your neighbor? If your neighbor owns land, can your neighbor pretty much do what they want on it? I agree with that as well. All right, can your neighbor sell land? Can your neighbor sell land to a sand pit? Can the sand pit, being the new owner of the land, harvest that sand? Can the new landowner, being the sand pit, install lights so that they can harvest 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Can they start jackhammering rock that they hadn't done before? Okay, I see a lot of hands going down. Almost nobody still has their hand up. And what I kind of agree with all of you, even the ones who had your hands up. It is the landowner's right to do a lot. It is D.R. Horton's right. It is my right to sell my land. I agree with all of that. But we decided to come together as a community. And as a community, we should determine how we want the world to act with us or interact with us, and how we want to interact with one another. And as the people of poetry, we need to hear your voice more than you need to hear our voice. So I hope, and this is what I've encouraged all along, I hope when we actually have the town meetings, you show up. You show up in strength like you have here. You let us hear your voice. I said us because I'm in this thing now, and I really want to be there to represent you. How much time do I have left? Just 30 seconds. Wow, this goes quick. So I'm going to leave it there. Again, I am not a fan of D.R. Horton coming in, but we as a community need to get together, and there are ways to do it legally and defensively, financially defensively, legally defensively. There are ways that we can do it that respects your rights, the rights of the future owners, and I think that's how we need to progress. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so our second question, and we're gonna, if we showed up to this meeting without a mask, correct? Yeah. That's your response. Mm-hmm. So we're being wildly disrespectful to all of us. I'd like to apologize if I'm being that way. But Matt and I are still running, but obviously we're not getting a voice tonight. And I don't agree with the way this format we ran. This is supposed to be a small community. You know, I came to this place myself 20 plus years ago. I'm not going to beat this dead horse that everybody else is beating down there. I want growth in this community? No, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen. But at the
out here, that way I'm socially distanced.
Oh, stop it. Stop it. I graduated, Matthew.
Me? I own a few heads.
Matthew Dennis.
Yes, ma'am, they will.
All right, let's move on because we're on a schedule. Matthew, you're up.
How's it going? My name's Matthew Dennis. Y'all got to meet my wife and my beautiful little daughter last time. I was unfortunate we couldn't be here. But I guess I'm gonna say pretty much the same thing everybody else has, that we really don't want a development and all that, but at the same time, we really don't know what we can and can't do. And I think that as this being a community, everything needs to be as transparent as it can be, and everybody should know what's going on and have a voice and so on and so forth. But it's pretty much all I got. I'm still learning. Sorry?
I said, quit beating on the furniture.
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you, Matthew. The second question is a little long because it includes examples. So the beginning of the question is, what are the minimal staff to be hired along with necessary funds to support them, recognizing that you can't know this for certain at this time? Examples include a city manager to oversee and direct operations at the will of the council, a city secretary to ensure budgets, taxes, and records are appropriately maintained, a city attorney to assist with legal claims against the city, as well as to inform and advise council regarding liability and other legal matters. Will a city manager be hired early on to guide the fledgling town through the laborious process of township? And will that be among the first actions for mayor and council? And we're going starting in a different person to make it more fair. So this question begins with Ryan Bo Scott.
Put the mask down so we can hear you.
You know, I was looking at this question a while ago, and I couldn't help but think that the whole reasoning behind the incorporation was to keep other towns from coming in. And my understanding at the time was, you know, it was going to be a town, but nobody really wanted us to be a town, you know. And so I see that, and I'm like, you know, that's all things a town does and cities have. It is, but at the same time, if we're trying not to, you know, I look at it, I'm like, if all this happens, then we're becoming exactly what everyone was trying to keep out in the first place, in my personal opinion. Like I said, I can't. It's hard to say exactly because, you know, you look at all these positions and everything takes money. And personally, I don't want my taxes being raised to pay for a city manager or, you know, whatever else. And so everything takes money. A town takes money to run, and a town gets its money from its citizens through taxes. And, you know, I'm not gonna lie to you, like my whole hesitation behind the whole incorporation thing was like, oh great, now my taxes are gonna go up even more. You know? And so I get what the question is trying to say, and you know, there does need to be some good leadership within the town, but at the same time, like, how much, you know, what's enough? And my personal belief, like I mentioned earlier, was that if we're going to hire anybody, I think we need to hire a lawyer because, you know, none of us are politicians. None of us really have, you know, background in politics or laws or, you know, running the city. And so, just my personal opinion, if we're going to look at something, I think the first thing should be hiring a lawyer and figuring out, you know, the legality side of things and, you know, what we can and can't do according to the law and the code, the state codes that are set before us.
Thank you, Bo. Stephen Welsh?
So hey guys, so my background is school. So I'm an assistant principal at Lakeview, and there's about 2,600 kids in that, 250 staff. So it's a little bit bigger than poetry, that whole school. So. But my opinion on this is I wouldn't like to hire anybody. I think that getting employees is a huge liability unless we need to and we have the resources for it. I think some of the stuff can be done by contract labor and not full-time salaries because you get into workman's comp and if there's an injury and liabilities and it's just a hassle. Employees are a hassle. And so I'm an employee, I love my job, but I just think it's really difficult when you get people that are on salary or hourly and you have full-time with benefits. And there's a whole, you got HR involved and it is just a hassle, y'all. So I just think we should do, if we need somebody, maybe an administrative assistant part-time to handle the paperwork for the councils and the mayor, and then possibly contract out for the lawyer and for any kind of municipal services, operational services that we need. That would be a start, an idea of where to start for me in my mind. I've just dealt with too many issues at the school level that it's just difficult when you get even high-end employees and low-end employees. It's all very, very chaotic. So I just don't want to see. I don't think we need to at this point. I don't know what we're going to need. I've never done this, but I think I'd like to see if we could get it done with volunteers and possibly contract labor if we need to, or very, very part-time where we don't have to get into a benefits payment. So that's my 2 cents worth on that.
Thank you, Stephen. Tom Anderson?
Sorry, I got the hearing aid mask on. Actually, I agree a lot with what Steve said. I think just reading the Texas Municipal Code, of which it's 2,800 pages, I didn't read the whole thing. But I've read enough of it to see that I think you have to have a city secretary, but I'm like Steve, you just do contract, whether it's a lawyer or a road crew or whatever. We don't want to get into a point where we have, in my opinion, have employees, at least not now. So a city secretary, I believe, the way I understand it, has to be had. So you have that. The other thing of which Brian has sent some information out, there's a strong mayor and a weak mayor. Those are different types of organizations. A strong mayor, the mayor actually acts more like the city manager, the way I read it. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but this is what I saw. So my feeling is like Steve, you do all contracts. If anybody acts like a city manager, it should be the strong mayor, of which a lot of cities in Texas have a strong mayor, and they don't have a city manager. The mayor acts like it, and that's what I would favor. Other than that, I agree with Bob. You keep the taxes down, you do everything we can to keep the costs down. I agree with Steve. We don't want the liability of employees getting hurt or anything like that could happen. So you do it all where legally possible by contract, and have the mayor be the strong mayor. And that's in the municipal code, of which I think Brian knows more about that, the state of Texas municipal code. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Mike Jaffe?
You know, kind of like Bo said, I read this question and I was sort of having a Tim reaction of really, we just became a town. And with all due respect to whoever came up with the question, these are certainly things we'll need to discuss, but I think it's a little premature to start, certainly hiring people, spending our money. And an observation I've made, and I think I shared this at the last meeting, I'm one of those rare people that's actually looked forward to getting old. Not the body falling apart, but getting old. Because with age comes wisdom, and I'm getting a little smarter by the day. And one of the things I've recognized is that people don't value what they don't have an investment in, right? If I give my kids a car, I can tell you they're going to trash the car because they didn't have to pay for it. And I've had this is speaking from personal experience. We don't take care of, go talk to the people that rent cars and trucks, they'll tell you people trash them, and hotel rooms and things that, so I think, and at the risk of sounding like Tara, I think it would be a better scenario if we could somehow keep ourselves involved in our own town, right? And I'm not saying everybody volunteers and we fix our own roads and all of that, but my point is if we have an investment because we live here, because we take pride here, we speak with our neighbors, we get along, I think we're going to just in general take better care of our community. But again, I think Tim made a great point. We're a little bit out in front of our headlights here talking about some of these topics, and I'm with him. Anybody that's up here telling you they got the answers is a liar. I'll call them that in public because we don't know. Partly because, as was just said, we're not politicians, but two, we haven't heard from you yet, as Brian pointed out. I mean, I know what kind of our opinions are. We published a lot of those, but I don't know what your opinions are, and I'm not here to make this Mikeville. I'm here to make this poetry, and whatever it is that we agree as a community, we want it to continue to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And Matthew, I've put you in the slot after Mike because it was empty. So, Matthew Dennis.
Yes, I do not see any point of hiring someone right off the bat until we figure out exactly what we're going to do. And I'm pretty sure everybody said that and agreed. And I don't even know if I have an answer to this question. That's about as far as it goes for me, to be honest.
Did good.
Thank you, Matthew. Simeon.
It is a great question, and like Mr. Tom Anderson said earlier, and what some of our other candidates have said, we got to make some decisions on this, but we're getting the cart in front of the horse a little bit. Thankfully, there are some solutions that will cost us either low or even no money to help people out, have people help out our town, believe it or not. And besides, of course, the actual councilmen and the mayor needing to be a part of the town, we do need a secretary. It's true, that's required as far as I know. So we'll need to do that. We've already had some volunteers for that, which is what I love about poetry so much, is all the volunteer effort. And talking about that, I think it's really important to clarify that our council members and mayors must be volunteer, at least in my opinion. With our type A municipality, and many other types, in fact, besides C's, the council actually has the power to set their own salary, which is a little scary. They can't set it for the term they're in, thankfully, but it's really important that this first council emphasizes that we're volunteer-based, because we don't want to be paying for people to come up here, and then there's a money incentive every time we have an election, and there's that whole worry about that. We want to avoid that if at all possible, and it is possible. Thankfully, the attorney, which is probably the biggest thing and most important thing, I'll just talk about a little bit. You can have an attorney on retainer, which is pretty cheap, but there's actually an even better way that kind of ties into the question about what we're going to do as a town and how we're going to have kind of a manager over the council, if you will, as we get on our feet. And some of you might know of the Texas Municipality League, and there is an exceptional deal for us as a small town, one that 98% of small towns use. It's $600 a year, and they gave us advice. They gave us full use of attorney, but I've already called them and talked to them, and they said for our first year as poetry, they're going to waive the fee and it's going to be free, which is fantastic. Also, I think that we need to look at a couple other things specifically. I've got only 30 seconds. Specifically, having a contract sheriff just to have around just a little bit, because those that live on 1565 know that cars just rush down there. And actually, sheriffs most of the time pay for themselves and actually earn towns a little bit of revenue that won't come out of y'all's pockets or our pockets because of taxes.
249 is just as bad.
It's true, they really are all just as bad as people rushing down there. Whenever I went canvassing, almost everyone I talked to had a complaint about the noise. So just having a little contract sheriff that comes in occasionally, pays for themselves, I think that's the other direction we should go.
Thank you, Simeon. Terry Fowler.
Man, there's just all kinds of ammunition being dropped up here. So let's talk about some of them. First and foremost, we do have to have a city secretary. Let's look just to the north of us, Union Valley. They have a part-time city secretary that helps them follow all that work. The paperwork has to go to the state. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel on this deal. That's something that we can contract out. I always appreciate a volunteer, but as new as we are, I think we should look at somebody that's done it recently. So and I haven't spoke to them. They might not be willing to volunteer, but I guarantee that would be my first place to reach out to. City managers, mayors, we're probably all gonna have our opinion, but we are all volunteers, and I would ask that y'all be the volunteers. So some of y'all know, or we spoke about it last time, I work at University Park Fire Department, and I've got to witness, let's call it a small government. It's really not. It's 25,000 people with a lot of money that do a lot of things. But one thing they do real well is they set up committees with people who care. So what kind of committees would we need? Well, maybe we need that finance committee. Some educated people who have been there, seen it, that can oversee this thing and say, what are our needs? What are our budget going to look like? What is this going to cost the city? Committee number one, for people who care that just don't want to be on this side. And probably most importantly here is a road improvement committee. People that care. But what that takes is probably spending some money and hiring a consultant to see what these roads are going to cost and what's the annual maintenance fee, our maintenance schedule. Just some ideas. I want to hear more from y'all, but I want to have answers up here instead of just saying, well, I don't think we need some. So city secretary, as far as the attorneys, TML, that's probably our best answer. I don't know a city that doesn't participate in. I'd like to look and ask Union Valley, Oak Ridge. Combine's a small city. I don't want to throw in under the bus Dr. Rand and Sandy, but if they're not willing to help us, I promise you that a network, and you talk about somebody that has a giving heart, they will help us some way, somehow. So if we're voting today, do I want to see a sheriff here? And I've had people approach me and ask me what I thought. I don't like the idea, and here's why. We would really need to look into the T-close laws. That's who regulates all police departments. So, from my understanding, we would have to form a police department. We would have to have a police chief. We would have to carry the certification of that sheriff officer, or at least co-sign on that sheriff officer. And then at some point, we find ourselves liable. We all moved to this community knowing that we had rural sheriff. You know, we have Hunt County. Some of y'all have Kaufman County. Of course, there's DPS troopers that live here too. We all came out here knowing what kind of police protection we had. So if you're comfortable with it then, why do we tax ourselves for a protection that maybe we don't need? So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Brian Benson.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence everybody has given me so far, but I want to assure you I'm not a lawyer and I do not play one on TV. I run the phone system for Harley-Davidson Motor Company out of Milwaukee. So I'm a ways away, but I know how to read. And I've done a lot of reading. And yeah, we do need a city secretary. One of the things about the city secretary that you need to consider is that the town council gets elected, the mayors get elected, and they go away. The city secretary is actually the cog around which everything else spins. This person is the one who has the continuity of the town. So they know why the decisions were made, not just what decisions were made. So to start off, yes, I could see a volunteer. Long term, we need to have somebody who has a fiduciary responsibility to us, somebody who actually has to do what the town needs them to do, not somebody who just wants to do what the town needs them to do. In that same vein, TML is a great organization. They can give us a lot of guidance, but in order to create, they do not work as a legal fiduciary to the town. They give us guidance, but if we want somebody who will go to court for us, say, that's when we need a town attorney. It doesn't have to be a full-time staff. It can be somebody on retainer that comes in as necessary. So, there's a lot that we have to do as a town, but we, by a vote of about 75%, we decided we wanted to be a town. Figure in those people who should have maybe voted and didn't want to be, maybe it's a 70%. But still, that's an overwhelming majority of people who said, we want poetry to be a town because we want poetry to be protected. Now we have to take those actions to make sure that the town is stable. We have to make sure that we are legally and financially defensible. So I really, really do not want to see any taxes. I have a feeling that eventually we will see some because it takes money to run a town. But right now, let's see what revenues we're getting from the utilities, that type of thing, and then see what you guys ask of us. Again, the more you ask, the more it's going to cost. So I hope that you ask for what you need, but I really hope that you don't ask for what you want, because that's going to end up costing us all. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Tim Smith?
First and foremost, I'd like to apologize for I just wish I'd have known that it was a potential spot to get paid. I didn't know we were doing right on the salary. So, initially I was always told that it was a voluntary type situation. Because here again, as somebody who's been in this town a long time, you can't sit here and complain and get frustrated with things if you're not willing to make action in that. So that's the reason that I came forward to do this. And so as far as volunteering my time, and there's a lot of us that this time of the year, we don't have a lot of time. So to me, it's just more important to make sure that we have a strong person in the mayoral position to help guide us, because there is a few of us individuals that may not be as educated as others. My biggest concern is with the mayor is, here again, like I said, myself, I've got several businesses and I've got a lot of things that go on. Which one of these mayor candidates is going to be able to dedicate the amount of time and to build this city? We can't build the city in sand where it's going to shift. It's got to be started on a foundation of stone. And if we don't do it right now, then down the road, when some of us that are elected and are not here, then it's not going to be a good foundation. So we need to make sure that when we do vote, we look into these candidates to make sure they're going to be able to put the time in that's going to be needed to put in. And so, the thing here is that, here again, like I said earlier, we're a fledgling town. We still got to negotiate with 2 counties now to see where we still stand, get some of our tax dollars back. We sit here and we're talking about roads. We can sit here and still negotiate with Coleman County and Hunt County to sit here and take care of our roads. We can sit here and negotiate with the sheriff's department. We still, just like Tara said initially when we first started doing this, it gives us bargaining power to where we as a small town can go in and negotiate. Yes, we need an attorney to
make sure we're doing it right. But just like the School of Poetry, when it started, it was a little old, run down, it seemed like a storage shed. And it grew to what you see today. And there's enough, that's the thing about poetry. It probably shouldn't surprise you, how many professional-minded people that we have in this community that are very talented. And I'm sure that we can get an attorney. We've got a lot of people that can do secretarial stuff. Here again, if I can volunteer my time, then a lot of folks can volunteer theirs. So that's kind of the way I feel about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Chad Delita.
Okay, so I guess to kind of piggyback off what Bo said earlier, none of us are attorneys. I guess I'm fortunate in a way because I do actually have an attorney at one of my businesses. Actually, he takes care of all of our businesses now, full-time, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. So as the great Elon Musk said, I may not have went to Harvard, but the people who work for me do, right? I don't know the answers. I don't think anybody here knows the answers. What I think that I'm good at is finding out the problem, getting the attorneys to sit down with me, explain to me the options, and really using that to understand my strategy on the battlefield, if that makes sense. So, do we have to hire these positions? I don't really know the answer. I don't know the budgets that we have just yet. I don't think anybody does. If the budget permits, legal is the number one to me in everything because I've been around the block in business a number of times and I've learned long and hard. You need to have the attorneys and you need to have them strong. Just like many successful business owners that you guys see on TV, it's a very, very important piece because you don't know how to play the game unless you have the attorney there at your side walking you through every step. So being that I would be elected as your mayor, my very first decision is to talk to attorneys. Obviously the free and the discounted services are great, but just like anything else, I wouldn't trust them entirely. I'd work with them, but the municipal league, even if they advise us on something, you just go on your merry way, and then it's up to you to comprehend what does that mean and what are all the ins and outs and around. So, you know, I think that having an attorney on staff that's been an attorney in Dallas for 17 years is a real advantage in business. I've learned that long and hard over the last few years, especially. Having his connections or having other attorneys in their networks of attorneys. When you work for these big law firms, there's 200 attorneys at them, and they all specialize in something different. So having the way in, understanding which way to go, who to talk to, what kind of attorneys we need to hire, and knowing the entire battlefield is my number one goal or at least priority if I were to be elected your mayor. So I'm not going to pretend I know all the answers. If we have to have a secretary, like some of the councilmen said, we will hire a secretary. Whatever the playbook is supposed to be, I'm going to make sure that we're lawyered up properly so we know how to attack it. And the best part about that is I want to do as little regulation as possible. So my battle plan would be as simple as I can probably get it, as long as we stay within the guidelines of the state and all the legal pieces that we have to add to the equation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chad. Tara Sinkovich.
I'm glad that we finally have a chair up here for those two men that want to exercise their freedom. With all due respect to my opponent, a business attorney is a far cry from a municipal attorney. Municipal attorneys choose municipal law because they care about small towns. Business attorneys are very different. Patricia Adams, whom you saw at the last town meeting, she's already given us pro bono multiple hours. She's been amazing. She revised the contract on the church, so I have great news. It was signed and certified today. We have a brand new contract for 50 years if the town so chooses on the new campground church. We put about $14,000 into that with volunteer funds and volunteer help, so that's a great first step. And so now I have talked with about 4 mayors and how these small towns do things, because this is a new thing for us. So these small town mayors spend, Kathy Serena is one. They incorporated in 2018. She has said that they spent all this time doing these ordinances that just basic things, like you have to set up your checkbook, you set up your city secretary, you set up your meetings on a regular basis. All those things that they had to pay an attorney to do, she said we could have for free. All we have to do is vet it with an attorney. That's a gift. I have all of those. So we can take or leave the ones that we don't want, but we have the format there. That's a beautiful gift. In talking with Craig Wasfald, our sister city of Union Valley, he gave us another beautiful gift. He said, hey, when you guys decide who your secretary is, we'll come help train her with our secretarial help. I'm like, that's a beautiful gift. And one thing you have to realize is the mayor in a type A municipality is, in Craig Wasfald's own words, they are kind of like the CFO and the CEO all rolled up into one. So they literally and figuratively keep the checkbook for the town. Now I ask you which candidate you would rather have to keep your checkbook. Okay, so that's something to really think about. The city secretary also deals with that checkbook, so it would be someone who would have to be really trustworthy. And I know that Kathy Sereno said for their small town, it took about 15 hours a week with the secretary and about 15 hours a week for the mayor. And so for a small town our size, and they just incorporated in 2018, and they've had an attorney general lawsuit on their hands. Lots of, all their money's going to legal, unfortunately, because they've been fighting a rock quarry. But they still, at that point, there's not a need really for a city manager, but they have needed an attorney. So Patricia Adam, I see that, I've talked with about 4 municipal attorneys, and what we don't want is we don't want a municipal attorney who will turn around and work for another city that's in our opponent's bed sheets, so to speak.
Thank you, Tara.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Robert Herman.
I didn't introduce myself earlier, so I'll do it now. I'm Robert Herman. Well, like Mike said, as I get older, I get a little wiser. And I think that my biggest answer to this question is when we get, whoever gets elected, that we just slow down a little, pause, and let's think this through. When I read this question earlier, I wrote down on my paperwork, volunteer, part-time, and my number one thing I wrote down was legal. As a town, we're gonna need legal advice. You guys, we wanna fight the D.R. Hortons. We wanna do what we can to keep poetry. We're gonna need legal advice on what we can and can't do so that we don't impose on homeowners' rights, landowners' rights. So I just think, like Mike Jaffe always tells me, the pregnant pause. Stop, let's think this through, and we can go on. That's all I got.
Thank you, Robert. And Clyde Serna.
I'm kind of like everybody else. We're running this to the, everybody's pretty much agreeing the same thing. The legal, I feel is important. Secretary, if we could get one to volunteer. And obviously we're all candidates and we all agreed to volunteer our time and some of us, money, whatever it takes to be successful and to give poetry a good foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. This is our last for everyone question. If you submitted a question and you have not heard it answered, the candidates have answered multiple other questions that are already posted on the website, poetrytexas.org, underneath the candidates. And they have been sent now more questions that have been submitted since the last meeting. So if you don't hear yours answered, go look there, and it probably is. So question number 3 is, what type of education or experience do you have that can help you better understand how small local government works and how to set up a new town? What separates you from the other candidates? And this one begins with Simeon White.
It is an especially good question. None of us up here, as far as I know, have any official experience with dealing with the town as far as an elected position goes, but I'm glad that some of us have indirectly been working with towns to kind of know generally what we should be doing and be familiar with it. As for me, I'm familiar with volunteering a lot. I was in Boy Scouts for a long time, and that, believe it or not, really coincides and works together with the city in a lot of projects. And during that, I got to meet a lot of the people of Terrell at the time, which was part of the reason I was a little not excited about being even in politics at all as far as city councilman, is because I dealt with Terrell for a good long time. I actually got to play dominoes with the mayor on a few occasions and kind of got to see his thoughts and his feelings and kind of how he worked, which is why I warned the town that Terrell had been planning to take over poetry for a while. They were just waiting for the go, because he said that to me. But I have worked with Terrell, and I've worked with on volunteer projects, like some volunteer at the library and whatnot, so I kind of am familiar with how a city process works. I've sat in for the meetings just because I wanted to be involved in the community, and I always have. I'm so glad poetry is doing this now, because it's so much better volunteering here. On top of that, I'm, as y'all know, a small business owner, so I'm somewhat familiar with the law. As Ms. Tara says, the law is very different for business, but you're familiar with the way law formatting is set out, which helps. I've been studying up on it since last year, ever since I heard that we were incorporating, because I plan to help out even if I wasn't elected. I'm going to jump real quick to what separates me from other candidates, although I could continue with the experience, because I know we're running low on time. And I'd say the main thing that separates me from other candidates that I really want to emphasize is I've been here helping the town since before we were a town. I've been canvassing to make sure we didn't become Terrell. I've been helping, say, such at meetings and trying to inform people as best I can, doing envelope stuffing, donating. You'll find me every weekend that we do it at the town hall, trying to repair things. We have one this weekend, I believe, so please try to show up for that. As my father says often, and which I agree with, actions speak louder than words. We can talk the talk up here. We can say how we want to help the town and how we care about the community, but I have been. I have been. It's my actions that are speaking now. And that's also why I want to give a little shout out to Ms. Tara and also Mr. Bryan, because they've been there since the beginning too and have helped in huge ways. So I know that doesn't help me, but really they're fantastic candidates. I know you stop me real quick, but I've also have a lot of time and I have a lot of energy, in case you can't tell, and I'm ready to tackle whatever problems we're thrown as a town. Simeon White, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Simeon. Terry Fowler.
All right, I too don't have a resume to run a city. I have a desire and a heart and a willingness and open ears. So I'm also not the smartest person in this room, but what I am smart enough to know is that I'm not, and that I can look to other people for advice and wisdom. With age comes wisdom, and I'm not like some wisdom compared to some of my competitors up here. So I beat the dead horse about looking at these other cities, and I don't want to downplay the importance of looking at somebody that's already done this. I was just sitting over here thinking, and I wrote down 4 just right off the top of the bat, with Union Valley and Oak Ridge and Combine. Actually, I wrote Combine twice. So, what qualifies me for this? I spoke of it last time. So I have been elected to position before. I was elected to be a fiduciary over Firefighters Relief and Retirement Fund. And as well, I see a good friend of mine, retired lieutenant from the fire department, Shane Schiller, served on that board with me. We were fiduciaries for over $10 million, $12 million. With that comes a lot of responsibilities and a good learning, a good chance for learning. I mean, we dealt with state legislators, and that's way above what we are here. But it's kind of let me see inside and how this works. The other thing that I think that I find important is I have to work on a budget. Being the battalion chief over training, I have a budget that I have to put in for every year. I think the fire department budget's $12–13 million. A portion of that's mine, and I have to answer for that. So I know how budgets work. I know what people are expecting from the budgets. And that being said, I know how to work with vendors and get multiple bids. We don't want any inside jobs. We're going to be regulated by government to use historically underused businesses, hub businesses. So I bring some of that education. I don't have the resume for this spot, but I am willing to learn. And I want to leave you with this. As corny as it sounds, it just wraps everything up. The cavemen invented the wheel. They hammered out the wheel. Centuries later, Henry Ford put that wheel on a car and they drove it off the assembly line. No reason to reinvent the wheel. I think we look at these other cities and we put it on our vehicle and we drive this thing into the future.
Thank you, Terry. Brian Benson.
Education was asked, so I'll tell you about my education. I usually lean heavier on my experience than I have a bachelor's degree in project management, business management, and with a minor in project management, and I have a MBA with a focus on organizational leadership. This would be an organization. If elected, I'd be part of the leadership, but again, I hope most of the leadership comes from the town. When I was with the American Red Cross, I ran the IT operations for the 5-state area, and there's Texas and every state that touches it. And in that role, I helped rebuild after Hurricane Katrina the infrastructure that was lost in Louisiana. In that role, I helped negotiate contracts in excess of $12 million for the rebuilding of 2 facilities and some of the local chapter infrastructure. Also dealt with various municipalities in Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana. So I have some familiarity with legal, and I have some familiarity with working in and around towns. I know what goes on in towns and how to get things done. That's some of my experience, some of my legal, some of my education. But really what I think qualifies me the most for this is that I can listen to you guys. I can read, see what we need to do. I can turn what you want into action, propose it for the entire council to review, have the mayor come in and do what the mayor needs to do with that, lead the council through session. So what I have the ability to do is process your requests, turn them into reality, and get them put into ordinances if that's what we want, or suggest a other method of accommodating those requests. Hopefully we don't have to do a whole lot of ordinances. Hopefully we don't have to pay for a whole lot of stuff. If you guys keep your requests low and your volunteerism high, then I think we can do a whole lot together. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Tim Smith.
I feel that we covered this in the first meeting. I'm going to concede my time so that way we can move along to field questions for y'all this evening, but I feel we're losing y'all. So conceding my time.
Tyler Sinkovich.
The eagle has landed. Okay. I have a postcard with, and I think that's online, a lot of my credentials. I'm short, so I gotta pull this down. So I currently CFO, Chief Financial Officer of Syncor Group. So I deal with budgets, accounting, contracts, AR, AP, payroll, taxes, you name it. I've done it. I've cleaned toilets as well. So I've also have a staff that I'm very proud of our low turnover rate. So we keep our staff. We're very selective who we hire, and then we keep them. We love our staff. We're like a small family-based business. We also, as you know, have the feed store as of 3 years ago. I am the manager there and the chief executive officer there. So my husband is also helps with that. But I would like to spend my time, because that's online, I believe. You know that I helped with the school here, thousands of hours, volunteer time. But I would like to dispel with my remaining time some myths that have been going around. Okay. The big building behind our store is not ours. That is Longhorn Organics. Filtering system for zoos is what they make. I think they might have a few cleaning products, but that's probably about it. Okay, it's Longhorn Organics. I do not want HOA, secondly, I do not want HOA type rules. I don't know where that started. I have never lived in one for a reason, okay? So I really do not care how high your grass is or what kind of vehicle you have parked in front of your car, in front of your house or yard, but what I do care about is holding the line on all this development. Okay, with every breath and fiber that I can, I'm gonna hold the line on that development. Now, there is also a misconception that I'd like to set the record straight here. By Texas state law, we're required to have a comprehensive plan. That plan has to go 25 years. That is a Texas mandate, okay? So we have to have a zone, whether you like it or not, we are required to, all right? So now there is a limit. You could do rural 1.0 acre, rural 1.5 acre, or rural 2.0. You cannot even have a 5.0, okay? That would be agriculture. And in agriculture, like Lucas, Texas, okay, they're in a city just north of Wiley. They have, their slogan is, let's keep it country. They've been able to do that fairly successfully. So, in what they have done, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just take notes from them and talk with their mayor, Jim Oak, and their 15-year planner, okay? And he says, you know, the number one thing you have to do is keep a city sewer out of your area, but then you also have to zone. And it's not the boogeyman, guys. You can, say for instance, you have 5 acres, you'd be at 2.0. If you want to divide your property, guess what? You can do that. Or if you have an ag, you can also do that. A grandmother can be on the edge of your property. Now the way they do it there is 20 acres is ag, you can cut off 2 acres for grandma. Okay, now we can decide as a town how we want to do that going forward. It can be ag for 5 acres. You cut off an acre for grandma. We can do that. Okay, we forge our own future. Okay, so there's been all this misconception that this is the boogeyman. It is not. Okay?
Thank you, Tar.
All right. So anyway, I'm all about saving the farms. I will have a savingthefarms.net coming soon on Thursday.
Chad will read that.
So, what experience do you have that can better understand small governments, how to set up a new town? So, kind of like a couple other people said this, I've never set up a new town. None of us have ever set up a new town. But I can tell you it's something similar to setting up and starting businesses in terms of there are budgets that you need to analyze what you have. There are staff possibly that you might need to have. And there are problems that you need to solve. So, I'd say that my best experience is to be for lack of a better term, serial entrepreneur. I think starting businesses and not only failing businesses is my best teacher over the years since I was practically 18. And I think that going forward as a mayor, I'm going to lean on heavily a lot of the experiences that I've learned through the business world. And I think those kind of apply, even though necessarily it's not exactly the same, especially on the law side. I think that As a mayor, my job is to make sure to listen. I think a part of my job is going to make sure to listen to the people, listen to the problems, and listen to the city council. I think if the residents of Poetry are expecting something, we're going to put it to a conversation, we're going to defend it and argue it on both sides, and we're going to take it to a vote with the council and move along fairly quickly. I think that's one of the, I guess, advantages or what's happened over my last 10 years in business. Like I mentioned before, I have anywhere between 100 to at one point almost 200 Texans working for our businesses. The reason why I believe that most of these Texans work for our businesses for many years is because in the end, you must still get people to like you and do business with you and talk with you and negotiate with you. I think coming in here with a preset standard of what they expect or what agenda somebody might have is wrong. I don't have an agenda in any way. That's why I've repeated myself. I want to do as little as legally possible, and with my attorneys and our city attorneys on staff, I'm going to make sure to carve that out and figure out what that is and what we have to do. But I don't think, as my opponent just said, I don't think it's up to us as a town necessarily to determine what you can do on your land at the same time. I think that's up to you and me and each of us as individuals. So that's the difference. I don't want restrictions. I don't want to sit there and tell what everybody can do. I want to find out what's the minimum we have to do as a town, and let's make sure to stop right past that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chad. Robert Herman?
I've owned and operated businesses. I've done some of the businesses I've been in. We've done work for government, so I kind of know that side of the government business. But I'll tell you that I won't be afraid to admit that what I don't know, and I'm going to learn as we go along here. And I'm coming in here with a clean slate. I have no agenda, nothing. I want what's best for Poetry. I want to keep it simple and small, just like it's been said. One of the other things that I think is important to me is I look to others for advice sometimes, and it's up to me to take what I get and go with it and make decisions on. And one more thing I want to add that's real important to me, and I haven't had a chance to say, is one of the things that is important to me as a citizen of the town of Poetry, whether I'm on this council or not, is we protect our ag. That's big for me. It helps me. I wouldn't be able to have my place without my ag. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Clyde Sermon?
As far as my experience, I'm currently a director of facilities and maintenance for a local distillery, where I provide leadership to 5 managers and over 20 maintenance personnel. I'm also a construction project manager, so I'm very familiar with the competitive bid process to make sure that if I am elected, that I'll meet with some of these road crews or whatever and try to get us the best value for our dollar. Also want to do a shout out to the Union Valley Fire Department that's out here. Thank you for keeping us safe and keeping Poetry safe during y'all's time. I serve a little bit of time with them as well as I volunteered with the Union Valley Fire Department. Volunteered for the U.S. military, did 22 years, and as a Navy chief when I got out in 2014. During my last tour, I held a leadership position of officer in charge over 250-man construction team, and we built cities. We built cities in Africa. We built military bases with all the public works and everything involved, a little security to go along with it so we don't get attacked by the enemy. But foremost, I'd just like to thank all of y'all, and as a retired veteran, that y'all have the opportunity to vote, and for some of y'all to express your opinions, and that's what America's about. So keep poetry strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Clark. Ryan Bo Scott.
Well, to be honest with you, two things I don't like talking about, probably the most. Myself, be number one. And, and I'm definitely not in trying to make myself sound better than other people or anything. I stand up here and tell you I have a college education, but I don't think it'd do any good because I know a lot of people that have college educations and aren't very smart. So, but I'm willing to learn. I think there's a lot of people that are willing to volunteer for these positions that have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge in a lot of different areas, a lot of different expertise, and I think seeking wisdom from not only them but also outside, and maybe whichever spectrum, outside help, and just being willing to learn what I don't know and serve the best I can. I can tell you there is one thing about me that I hold big in my life, and that is integrity and doing the right thing. And for me personally, I try to use biblical standards that God set forth in the Bible, the biblical standards He set forth and gave us in His Word as kind of my moral compass, determining right and wrong, and just treating your neighbor the same way you want to be treated, loving them and helping them out. So, thank y'all for volunteering your time to come out here and listen to all of us stand up here and yammer. So, we have a good evening.
Thank you, Bo. Stephen Welsh.
So, one, thank you, Dr. Herman. Your facility is awesome. Appreciate having us tonight. So, my background in school, I love being an assistant principal, and I love working with kids and people, and I love education. So, that's what it's all about for me, is learning and helping people do better. I'm a servant at heart, so if I can help poetry do better, then I will. And I think I share some of the similar experience that Clyde has with project management. I was a director of operations for a local school district in Sunnyvale, and saw the RFP process and the bid proposals come through, and dealt with a lot of architects and general contractors, and that process was not fun. Man, it was really awful. So there's a lot of dishonest things going on in the world of politics, even in schools. I just don't want to see those kinds of things come to this. That's one reason I ran. I didn't know if there'd be any honest people running. So I know you don't know me, but that's kind of what I wanted to make sure. There's no underhanded deals going on. So I'm a voice of reason, and I keep it real simple in my experience. I just want to bring that to the table, and hopefully we can do better. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Tom Anderson.
Well, I guess you've heard everybody, and I have to say, whatever you decide, I think there's a lot of good candidates, both for mayor and for the council. And I have a lot of respect for everybody that I've heard here. So I think you got a lot of good choices to make, and I'm open to working with, if I'm elected, open to working with whoever's there to do the best we can for the city of poetry. That's what this is about. It's not us, it's for the city. And I do appreciate all that Tara and Brian and Simeon and others have done to get us to this point. It's a huge effort. And now we're going to move forward to the next step. And if I'm elected, I'll do what I can to help. Now, in that regards, I went to A&M. I got a degree in chemical engineering. I have an MBA, and also I'm a registered professional engineer. And I'm retired. So I do have time. I spent over 40 years in business, mostly in the oil industry. I spent the first 15 years working in refineries and oil companies directly, and then the next 25 years or so working in consulting. And I was an officer most of that time for 2 different consulting companies. And when I retired, I was president of the company. And so doing it, I had a lot of experience, read a lot of legal documents, had to sign a lot of documents for the company, as well as reviewing things for the work we were doing and the companies we were working for. Had to deal with financial people, we had budgets to make, income, loans. So I had to deal with lots of banks and financial institutions and do a lot of presentations. And doing consulting, it's all about going out, or at least my role was going out doing presentations, meeting with lots and lots of people. So I guess if there's one strength I have, it's being able to meet with people and get things done. Because at the end of the day, time is of the essence. We've got to get things done. And my feeling here is there's a lot of important, difficult things to do and to decide. And I think people here that you've heard are perfectly capable of addressing them, and I'm willing to help. I'd like to help if I'm elected. But the big thing is we've got to get a legal basis, we've got to get a financial basis, and an organizational basis. And then once we have that decided, we have to move forward and get things going so that we are able to establish ourselves as a company, as a city. And if we have legal issues to address, whether it's with EPA or with the D.R. Hortons, we have the strength and the ability and the cohesion to do that. I think it's important that we have a council and a mayor that are together. And to me, I think you've got some good choices, and I'm happy to work with any of them that you elect if I'm elected. So, having said that, thank you very much. Thanks for coming out. And I have to say, good luck, and hope everything goes okay, and please vote and make the best decision you can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Mike Jaffe?
I appreciated Bo's comment that he could stand up here and talk about his college education, but that's really not what you're voting for. I went to A&M also and have a couple of degrees, and I can tell you they helped me one time, and that was to get a good paying job, and I haven't looked at them since. So that's enough about college degrees and about what they're worth. I've managed to stay alive for 60-something years, raise a couple of kids, stay married and some other things, and I think they've taught me a lot. I worked in technology. I helped start a lot of small growth companies that were early stage. Venture capital had already come in, and I was there to help sort of figure out what we were going to do and what we weren't going to do. So I've got a lot of experience with pulling teams together. I also did quite a few stints with small technology companies that were in the ditch that needed to be turned around. So I was able to go in and help them recover. My strength is in engineering and operations, so I'm a kind of get it done kind of guy. But, I think as some people pointed out, really at the end of the day, hopefully you're voting on what you see standing in front of you and what you hear from our hearts. We do have a website. Tara's bringing up one. I'm a part of another one called keeppoetrycountry.com. And we've got a lot of good video on there of a number of the candidates, and we're inviting others to participate to kind of give you more time with us so you can see kind of who we are and what we stand for. It seems like there's a little bit of a separation up here on the stage as I sit here and listen to us tonight. Clearly, the people that were heavily involved in the incorporation have much more knowledge than those of us who weren't part of a corporation. I'm not saying we weren't for the corporation necessarily, but if you participated, clearly Tara and others have spent a lot of time. So I don't know if that gives us an advantage or disadvantage, but I just wanted to sort of point it out. It's not that the rest of us don't care, it's just we haven't necessarily been given access to the attorneys and to these others. But we have made phone calls. I've talked to Greenville City Attorney and to Craig over at Union Valley and a bunch of others to try to get some background. So I am curious, but again, I don't want to get out there and start looking like I'm representing you as the town of Poetry, because I'm not your representative yet. I'm just a citizen. The other thing that occurs to me, though, is I always enjoy on television when I see pharmaceutical ads, and I know that's a little bit out there, but it's always interesting because they start out with, here's what we can treat, and then really fast they read off the side effects. And usually the side effects include death and bleeding of the nostrils and paralyzation and all kinds of craziness. And so I guess I say that because as I sit here and listen to us too, I think, we've got these ideas, but everything has side effects, right? I mean, you make a decision and there are sometimes unintended consequences. So I appreciate all the things that I and others have said up here. But again, there's a lot we don't know. We don't know you yet well enough, and we don't know the job well enough. We can go, I actually served a couple of years on the city council for the town of Wilmer, Texas, a town a little bit bigger than we are. I've worked with TML. I've got a lot of experience there. I know what it takes to be a councilman. I was hated. I was loved. Went through all the gyrations. But again, this is a little bit of new ground for all of us here. So please sort of look into who and what we are. I mean, our credentials are interesting, but I've seen a lot of pedigreed dogs turn out to be mutts. So be careful what you vote for. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Matt. Matthew Dennis.
The education that I bring to starting a new town and stuff like that is none. But what I do have is a young mind and a strong back, and I'm willing to learn. And a lot of people know either me or my family, and we do a lot of things ourselves, and we help out a lot of people. And if we don't know, we find out. That's what I'm here to do and why I decided to run. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, so we have a question that is just for the mayoral candidates because it has been asked and asked and asked and asked. It's a very, very hot topic scenario. I mean, I left it pretty much word for word here how it was submitted to us by one of the people who it seemed the least biased against one or the other. Both of the mayoral candidates have been running on the concept of keeping poetry country. However, there are concerns that one candidate is a land developer and the other has facilitated the purchase of agricultural land and built a commercial business that deals in the manufacture and storage of chemicals. Can you both respond to these concerns? And it is Chad Delita first.
Okay, so I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or not, but the irony of that question, I saw Tara mention online a few times that I'm some big-time neighborhood land developer, and man, that just sounds fun, but the funny part about it is I've developed as many neighborhoods as Tara, which is 0 in my entire life. So I can speak only up to today. I can't say in the future that I would never love to be some D.R. Horton, because I think there's a few commas in that bank account, but the idea of me being a land developer because I have a company that does dirt work is kind of funny to me. I've been laughing ever since I've been watching it on the internet. So the answer is I've bought land before and I've cut it off and sold it as is, but developing big neighborhoods and all that comes with being I guess a real land developer is just all, it's not true. Never done a neighborhood in my life, although, I'd love to maybe hopefully be that big one day, because that sounds like it's a successful position. But let's just pretend that I did 100 neighborhoods in my career. That has nothing to do with me running my own campaign in my own town, in my own city. I moved to the country for no restrictions, and that's why I want to keep it. I don't want to keep making neighborhoods that are restrictive, crowding where I sleep, and where I stay. So just to be clear, as all can be, you can bet on that. I've never developed a neighborhood up until this day, and I'd only hope I'd be lucky enough to actually be that kind of businessman. I'm a businessman of small businesses. I don't think I'm at that level just yet, although maybe one day I'd hope to get to that kind of a reputation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
Okay, so I addressed earlier that our company, actually, I'm really proud of my husband's expertise. He just asked me to quit. I was teaching actually here at the school and loved being a teacher among a fabulous staff, and for years I loved it. But when the time it was necessary for us to venture out and start our own business, he asked me to come alongside and help him. But I'm really proud of the fact that we took ourselves off unemployment and we forged a new company that is like family. And we love our employees, we try and treat them well, we give them benefits as much as we possibly can. And our business, we sell chillers, which keep aquatic animals alive. We make barley cleaners, like so if you want to get fish from the Petco and you bring them home and you've got to get the chlorine out of it, that's what we do. We make dechlorinators so that your fish can stay alive and healthy. We make all kinds of products that will help treat your fish diseases. Okay, so that's the kind of chemicals that we produce. So we have a production line, and we have, like I said, we have chillers that we sell, and they're a really nice chiller. So I really like the quote by John Wayne, and it says, you know, every person needs two things to have a successful life. First, he needs a moral code of right and wrong. And secondly, he must have a backbone to keep from being swayed by those without a moral code. If you'll give me the opportunity to be your mayor, I would hold the line for you. I would listen to you. I would keep the checkbook intact. One of the very first things we have to do is do a budget. I've been working with FEC, working with Encore on that very thing, on possible revenues. You know, when I did talk, I called Craig Wascald in March 8th, my husband's birthday actually. And, you know, I asked him, I said, Craig, what is the job of a mayor? And he said, you know what? It's simple as you have to be able to see what is in front of you.
Okay, you're not answering the question. Is that your business going in on that 17 acres, an industrial business?
I answered that earlier, but I'll repeat that for you. No, ma'am, that is not our business. That is owned by Bo and Holly Dempsey. That is Longhorn Organics. Okay, they're in agriculture, aquaculture. They build systems for water zoos and things. So they are agriculture, aquaculture based. So, and they do have a building that is. Well, they have to pass all the county codes. Well, they're officially not even in the town. Well, okay. You're making my point for me. Exactly. Going forward, do we want all that in a beautiful, I mean, that's the point.
So how do you determine which zones are going to be where, and how is that going to affect the taxpayers?
Okay, so that's a very good point. And you know, I haven't done it before, but I have consulted Lucas, Texas. And, you know, they have a great amount of their land is zoned as agriculture, and they want to keep it that way. Their motto is, let's keep it country, and they've tried really hard to do that. And so they zone, most of their land is agriculture. 80% of their properties are rural 2.0 acres. So even if you have 5 acres, you would be zoned as 2, because the state of Texas is actually very, sadly to me, it is very pro high-density development, because half our legislature are developers. Okay, it's a very lucrative thing. All right, so they don't even allow you to have, even though 57%, I did a survey among when I canvassed the neighborhoods, 57% of you said that you would like to see, in your view of country, 5 acres or more. 57% of you. Only 3% of you said that it would be 1 acre or less. And my opponent seems to think that 1 acre is perfectly fine. Well, that's a 3% view.
So that company
So, guys, let me remind you that you can ask the candidates questions after,
Yeah, please come by.
and we're keeping, she has a table in the back there, for any questions that you have for Tara. We've been here quite a long time. I feel like also, in fairness, Chad should be able to respond to the questions that have been brought, because she's had an extra time because you guys are asking questions. So let's let Chad respond to the questions already posed, and then ask whatever questions you guys have after. We have one more kind of an optional thing after that, and then they'll be at their tables. All of them have a table for you to ask whatever questions you have for them. So, Chad, do you have any response to any?
I will need the questions again, though, if you guys don't mind. What question would you like me to answer?
They were asking questions about zoning and how
Sure.
it would prevent a company like the company that isn't Tara's.
Yeah, I don't know the connection there. Apparently there's something in the same world. I have no idea. But once again, in my personal opinion on how this kind of works is if we keep it country as I am kind of defining, I'm not going to have regulations on what small businesses do as long as they're a small business. If you watch some of my videos on keeppoetrycountry.com, I did define industry and large industry as not in that category. So I don't know anything about this plant or what kind of chemicals are there and how big it is or small it is or what they plan on doing. But I can tell you, I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm literally just hearing this like right now. So whatever it is, it's going to be either a small business for a small business and that homeowner and that landowner. I'm in support of whatever that is, as long as they're minding their business and not doing anything illegal and all the checks and balances that have to happen. But if it's anything large business, large industrial, landfill, buying that big, beautiful, almost lake close to my house, whatever that is, there's a line, and that line with me is small business versus big business and large industry. Anything else?
Okay, so the last thing that we had, if you are on social media at all, you've seen people talking about what I'm about to ask them about, and it's completely optional response. So there are a couple of Texas codes that people have been talking about, and one of them, I somehow didn't get all of it pasted in this sheet, so I'm going to read off it. So Texas Local Government Code Section 21.024 states that municipal officers may be removed for certain criminal acts and violations. It also states that officers cannot be removed if the act was committed before going into office and was either a matter of public record or otherwise known to the voters. The Texas Government Code Section 572.001 states that elected officials must have no or any appearance of a conflict of interest, and that includes a direct or indirect interest. I would just move to direct or indirect interest, including financial and other interest, or engage in a business transaction or professional activity, or incur any obligation of any nature that is in substantial conflict with the proper discharge of the officer's or employee's duties in public interest. So, anything that you want to disclose, you can disclose at any time that you'd like. So this is just presenting you the opportunity because we've been asked this and it's been discussed at length. To prevent any future issues, is there anything anyone would like to disclose to the voters regarding past criminal acts which are presently unknown to the voters or not a matter of public record, and not a matter of public record, or any financial connections to the town of Poetry, any other candidate, or any other candidate's campaign? And if not, then we'll go to the tables. Mike? Sure. Yeah.
So I'm not going to admit admit to anything because I don't have anything to admit to, but other than to say that this whole question kind of bothers me because we're saying something without saying something. If somebody has an issue, I wish they would just bring it out. I can tell you we are governed as candidates in part by the Texas Ethics Commission. They have a legal department. Any of us are able to call them, okay? And I would encourage you to call them if you have questions or concerns. Don't depend on your neighbor. They're probably not an expert on campaign ethics. I have spoken to them for many hours. I spoke to them before I signed up for this little journey, and I just spoke to them this morning, in fact. Because one of the things that's been levied against myself and Chad and others is that we're somehow in cahoots in our campaigning. We're doing what's basically, I can't even remember the term. I wish I had my notes in front of me. It is absolutely legitimate for people who are running for office to work together in hopes of getting their position or whatever. There are no rules being broken. Everybody is filing paperwork. I'm sure everybody standing around me is. If somebody has a question, I would encourage you to be upfront about the question. We need to be upfront with one another and transparent once we're running our town. As we have issues, we made the point in one of our discussions about how much we hate it when towns go into executive session to vote. They come out, the vote has been made, and nobody knows who voted which way. Right? Nobody will actually own up to what they said or what they did. And I think it's important that we do. I don't know exactly who this question was directed at or what somebody is sort of hinting at, but I would appreciate somebody just being direct and say, I think you're breaking the rules. When I talked to the legal department at the Texas Ethics Commission this morning, Patty Shannon, you're welcome to call her. She looked forward to your calls. They've talked to some of us already. If you have had a complaint filed on you, and I haven't checked with the other candidates, they called you immediately. They will call you the day the complaint is filed, okay? And so if they haven't called you, nobody has filed a complaint, which means basically we're dealing with rumor. And I don't think rumor is healthy. If we have an issue, let's talk. It may hurt my feelings for a minute, but let's get through it and let's have a conversation, because I don't think this innuendo stuff is healthy. I don't think it's good for us. I don't think it's good for the city.
That's when we decided to go ahead and throw that out there, just because there's all this conversation. Nobody's saying who they're talking about. I don't know who they're talking about, but everybody's talking about it.
Let me address the situation that Mr. Jaffe was just talking about. A couple of weeks ago, we have a weird election here, a special election, and it is an election happening on a Saturday. So I called the Texas Texas Ethics Commission. As Mike says, anybody can do it. And I asked them that could I go to the other candidates and ask as a group for us all to put in a small amount of money so that we could send out postcards to you guys, reminding you of what day the election was going on, and to come out and vote. And I was told at that time, if a group of candidates work together in any capacity, then that is considered a political action committee, and you must register a political action committee, and you must register a treasurer. I didn't want to do that paperwork, so I just put it behind me. A few days later, I saw that on Keep Poetry Country, or Keep Poetry Great, I think is also the other alias, that Mike, Robert, and Chad had their 3 images together, and it all said vote for their respective candidates. So I called Mike, because he's the one I'm most familiar with in the trio, and I told him that from my understanding, he needed to register as a PAC to keep from getting in trouble. And so we had, I think the conversation was around 1 minute and 23 seconds, and I never anticipated having a public discussion about it. But it came up, so that's how my portion of this, that Mike address came about. I actually sent a portion of this question in, but I didn't send it in relation to that. If we want to talk directly about what my portion of the question was, then I invite Chad, if you'd like to come up here and talk about your criminal record, then I'm more than welcome to hear it. All I know is that I ran a background check. I know you were young at the time, so if you would like to address it, then I'm hoping to give you that opportunity to address it in a way that's comfortable for you.
Also, keep in mind that if it's a matter of public record, it's already, you do not have to.
Everything is public record. I got caught with marijuana when I was a teenager, I'm sure. And if there's any questions about what we do in our teens compared to when I'm 36 tomorrow, I'd be happy to answer any of them for any of you. I can just tell you this, for a kid that, let's say, went through all the check boxes through middle school, parents, you know, the whole gamut. I won't bore you or try to get any sympathy, but I can tell you I've came a long way for many years, and I promise you it's only getting better and better from here. So if you have any questions, please feel free to come see me at my table. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Chad.
Just to follow up on that, that is the entire reason I asked the question, is because there are things that happened in your childhood, and I wanted him to be able to address it and not for it to come up as his shadow later. So, thank you.
Okay, well, that concludes our meeting. Oh, sorry. And actually, one thing real quick, so Dr. Herman is going to speak with you. If you don't mind, if you could just put your chair on a rack on the way out, that would help us.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Shanna and I do not have energy to put them all back. So we have 2 racks in the back that we put the chairs on, so as you depart, if you'll just grab your chair, throw it on the rack, that would be greatly appreciated. Sure seems like this city